He denied my pregnancy, but what happened at the end shocked him. Please stay with me as I tell my story, and please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking our videos, and sharing to your loved ones. Your support means a lot to us. Now, this is my story. When I first met Jason, I never imagined my heart would end up in the hands of a man who would one day pretend not to know me. It was in London, a chilly evening in late November. I was working as a junior architect at a design firm, juggling deadlines, late-night coffees, and an unending list of client revisions. My best friend, Claire, had dragged me to a mutual friend's birthday dinner, claiming I needed fresh air and a man with good cologne. That's when I saw him. Tall, confident, the kind of man who looked like he owned the room without even trying. Jason Hart, a successful tech entrepreneur known for launching an app that had just made headlines for being acquired by a U.S. company. His laugh was warm, his voice calm and steady. When our eyes met, he smiled like we had known each other for years. We talked the whole night about work, family, dreams, and the weird way London winters could make you crave soup even if you hated it. He was charming but not overconfident, playful yet attentive. When he asked for my number, I gave it without hesitation, something I rarely did. Within weeks, Jason became a constant in my life. Good morning texts, weekend brunches, spontaneous trips to the countryside. He would show up at my apartment with flowers just because, and we'd spend hours cooking, laughing, and planning our futures. He spoke often about marriage, about us, about forever. I wasn't naive. I had dated before, but Jason made it feel different, safer, more certain. The first time he told me he loved me, we were standing under the rain after getting caught without an umbrella. His hair was wet, his jacket soaked, but his eyes were steady on mine when he said, "Emily, I think you're the one." And I believed him completely. Months passed and our relationship deepened. My friends teased me about glowing every time I mentioned his name. Even my parents, though cautious, said they could hear happiness in my voice when I spoke of him. Then came the night everything changed. It was early spring, the air still crisp but hopeful. Jason invited me to a weekend getaway in Santorini. "You deserve a break," he said. I had been drowning in work stress, and his thoughtfulness melted me all over again. That weekend was magical. Blue skies, candlelit dinners, and endless laughter. He talked about our future home, the family we'd build, and how he couldn't wait to make me his wife. He even joked about baby names one night after too much wine. So when I found out I was pregnant a month later, I wasn't scared. I was happy. Nervous, yes, but mostly happy. I thought Jason would be too. I still remember the day I told him. He came over after work, his tie loosened, jacket slung over his arm. I made him dinner, pasta with his favorite white sauce, and asked him to sit. "Jason," I began softly, my hands trembling slightly, "I have news." He smiled, leaning forward. "What's going on?" I took a breath. "I'm pregnant." The smile vanished. At first, he just stared, as if I had spoken a different language. Then he laughed, awkwardly, a short, disbelieving sound. "You're joking, right?" My heart sank. "No, I'm not." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. He stood up, pacing. "Emily, this can't be happening. We've been careful." "We haven't always been," I interrupted softly. "Jason, I thought you would be happy." "Happy?" He turned, his face cold now. "Emily, do you realize what this means for me, for my career, for everything I've built?" My throat tightened. "For us, you mean?" He shook his head. "There is no us if this is true. I'm not ready to be a father. I can't be." I tried to hold back tears. "Jason, you told me you wanted a family one day." "One day," he snapped. "Not now. And how do I even know it's mine?" That sentence hit me like a slap. The man who once swore he would love me no matter what was now looking at me like a stranger. I stood frozen, watching him gather his things. "Jason," I whispered, "please don't do this." But he was already heading for the door. He turned one last time, his eyes hard. "I can't deal with this, Emily. Don't contact me again." And then he was gone. That night, I sat on the floor, shaking. The pasta had gone cold, the candles melted into nothing. Everything that had felt so certain had turned into a storm of confusion and heartbreak. The next morning, I tried calling him. No response. I texted, emailed, even went by his office, but the receptionist told me he was unavailable. Within a week, he'd blocked me on every platform. I was left alone, pregnant, heartbroken, and drowning in disbelief. But something inside me, a quiet, fierce part I didn't know existed, whispered, "You will rise from this, and one day he'll regret everything." Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The shock of Jason's betrayal didn't fade. It settled like a stone in my chest. Every morning, I woke up half expecting a message from him saying he had made a mistake, that he wanted to talk. But that message never came. Instead, I watched his life move on without me. Instagram photos of him at business events, laughing with investors and celebrities, LinkedIn posts celebrating his company's new achievements. He looked happy, untouched, while I was learning how to survive morning sickness and loneliness in a small London flat. Claire became my lifeline. She stayed through my breakdowns, cooked for me when I couldn't get out of bed, and reminded me that I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than you think, Em," she'd whisper. "And that baby inside you, that's your reason to keep going." I tried to believe her. I really did. By the 5th month, I had stopped hiding. I walked into the office with my small bump showing, ignoring the whispers. My boss, a kind woman named Helen, adjusted my workload and gave me space to breathe. But everywhere I went, Jason's name followed me like a shadow. One day, during lunch, I overheard 2 coworkers gossiping. "Did you hear Jason Hart's getting engaged?" "Seriously? To who?" "Some American model. He's been all over the tabloids lately." My hands shook so badly I spilled my tea. He had moved on, quickly. The next morning, the tabloids confirmed it. Jason Hart and American model Vanessa Broom were the new power couple. Their smiling faces stared back at me from every newsstand. I felt sick, not because he had found someone else, but because of how easily he had erased me, as if I never existed. That night, I made a decision. If Jason wouldn't face what he has done, then the world would. I reached out to his assistant, an older woman named Martha, who had always been kind to me during our time together. "Martha," I said over the phone, voice trembling, "please, I'm not asking for much. I just need him to acknowledge the pregnancy, to take responsibility." Her sigh told me everything before she spoke. "Emily, I'm sorry, dear. Jason told everyone you were just someone trying to trap him. He said the baby isn't his. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. He hadn't just denied me privately. He had destroyed my reputation to protect his own." I hung up, tears blurring my vision. The world felt heavy, cruel, and unfair. I wanted to scream, to make him feel the pain he had caused me. But instead, I held my stomach and whispered, "You and I will be okay, I promise." As my pregnancy advanced, I learned to live quietly. I moved into a new flat closer to Claire's, sold my car to pay medical bills, and focused on preparing for motherhood. My parents, who lived in Scotland, came down often to help. They were disappointed in Jason, but proud that I was choosing strength over shame. Then, in late November, exactly 1 year after Jason and I first met, I gave birth to a baby boy. I named him Ethan. He had Jason's eyes, deep brown with a spark that could melt anyone's heart. When I first held him, all the anger I had carried dissolved into something pure and fierce. I didn't need Jason anymore. I had Ethan. Still, deep down, I promised myself something. Jason Hart would one day see this child. He would see what he threw away. And when that day came, It wouldn't be me begging, it would be him. Life with Ethan was tough but beautiful. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, and the quiet joy of watching him smile in his sleep. I returned to work after 6 months, balancing motherhood and my career. Slowly, my life began to bloom again. Then, one afternoon, while leaving the office, I saw a familiar car parked outside. A black Mercedes, the same one Jason used to drive. My stomach twisted. The driver's door opened, and out stepped Jason himself. For a moment, I froze. He looked different, more polished, more successful, but those eyes, I recognized the guilt buried behind him. "Emily," he said softly, as if speaking my name hurt. "What do you want?" I asked, holding my bag tightly. He ran a hand through his hair. "Can we talk, please? Just 5 minutes." I should have walked away. I should have told him to rot in the luxury he had chosen over us. But curiosity made me nod. We sat in a nearby cafe. He ordered black coffee. I didn't order anything. He started talking, words tumbling out faster than I could process. "I was wrong, Emily, about everything. I panicked. I was under pressure from investors, and Vanessa, she wasn't what people thought. We broke up months ago. He swallowed hard. "I need to know if the child is mine." I stared at him, stunned by his audacity. "Now you want to know?" "Please," he said, eyes glistening. "If he's mine, I'll do whatever it takes. I just need the truth." I could have screamed. I could have told him about the nights I cried, the pain of hearing him deny me publicly. But instead, I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture of Ethan. Smiling, bright-eyed, his little hands holding a toy giraffe. Jason's face went pale. His coffee cup trembled slightly. "He looks like me," he whispered. "Yes," I said coldly, "and you denied him." The silence stretched painfully. Then he looked up, voice shaking. "Can I see him?" I stood. "You'll see him, Jason, but not today. Not until you face what you did." And as I walked away, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. The power he once had over me was gone. But what Jason didn't know was that my next move would shake his perfect little world to its core. The day Jason saw Ethan's picture was the day everything inside me shifted. For nearly 2 years, I had imagined how it would feel to face him again, to see the man who had once promised me forever, now asking for forgiveness. But when it actually happened, there was no satisfaction, no triumph, only exhaustion. He had shattered me, and even though time had mended most of the cracks, some scars were still visible. After that encounter at the cafe, Jason began calling and texting me constantly. At first, I ignored him. Then, when his messages became desperate, I blocked him, again. But Jason was persistent. He sent flowers to my office, toys for Ethan, and emails filled with regret. He said he wanted to take responsibility, that he was ready to be a father. A part of me wanted to believe him, but the larger part, the one that remembered the pain, the humiliation, knew better. I had built my life around my son, not around broken promises. Raising Ethan on my own wasn't easy. I worked long hours, often staying up late after he slept to finish designs and meet deadlines. Money was tight, but somehow I always managed. There were nights I cried quietly, afraid I wasn't doing enough, that he would one day ask about his father and I wouldn't have an answer that wouldn't break him. But then Ethan would giggle or reach for my face, and suddenly everything felt worth it. He was growing fast, talkative, curious, full of life. Every time I looked into his eyes, I saw Jason's reflection. And it hurt, but it also reminded me that something beautiful had come from something cruel. One rainy afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Jason stood there, again. But this time, he wasn't alone. A tall man in a dark suit stood beside him, holding an envelope. "What do you want, Jason?" I asked coldly, keeping the door half closed. He sighed. "Please, Emily, I need to talk. This is important." The man beside him cleared his throat. "Miss Cooper, I'm Mr. Thompson, Mr. Hart's attorney." My heart sank. Attorney? For what? Jason looked at me, his face unreadable. "I'm filing for a paternity test. If Ethan is my son, I want shared custody." For a moment, the world stopped spinning. I stared at him, disbelief turning into fury. "You denied his existence, Jason. You called me a liar in front of your colleagues, your assistant, and the entire internet. And now you want shared custody?" He swallowed hard. "I made mistakes, I know, but I want to make things right. I want to be in his life." I laughed bitterly. "You're not doing this because you care about Ethan. You're doing it because your image is cracking, and you think playing devoted father will fix it." Jason didn't answer. That silence was enough confirmation. I slammed the door in his face, my hands trembling. Inside, Ethan was playing with his blocks, humming a little tune. I knelt beside him, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Don't worry, my love. No one is taking you away from me." But deep down, I knew this fight wasn't over. A few weeks later, I received an official letter from Jason's lawyers demanding a DNA test. Claire urged me to stay calm and talk to my own attorney, so I did. The test was done quietly in a private clinic. Jason was there, dressed impeccably as always, his eyes darting nervously when he saw Ethan for the first time in person. Ethan stared back, innocent and curious. Then, to my shock, he smiled, just like Jason used to when we first met. Jason's lips trembled. For a moment, I saw genuine pain in his eyes. Maybe he really did regret it, but I couldn't let my heart soften, not yet. The results came back a week later. 99.99% probability. Jason was the father. What happened next was something I hadn't planned for, but it became the first taste of justice. Someone, no one knows who, leaked the paternity results to the media. Within hours, news outlets were flooded with headlines. Tech mogul Jason Hart confirmed father to secret child. Former girlfriend proves paternity after 2-year denial. Social media exploded. People dug up old interviews and tweets where Jason had praised honesty and family values. The hypocrisy burned him publicly. Jason called me, panicking. "Emily, did you do this? Why would you?" I cut him off. "I didn't leak anything, but maybe now you'll understand how it feels to be exposed and powerless." He sighed deeply, guilt thick in his voice. "I just want to fix this." "Fix it," I snapped. "You can't fix what you broke, Jason. You denied your son. You denied me. Now you're facing the consequences." And with that, I hung up. For the first time in years, I slept soundly that night. As Jason's reputation took a hit, mine began to rise. People admired my strength, my grace. I received messages from women around the world thanking me for standing up for myself and for my child. My firm offered me a promotion after I completed a big design project that got featured in an international magazine. Life, after years of heartbreak, was finally smiling back at me. Ethan turned 2. I threw him a small party with Claire, my parents, and a few close friends. Laughter filled the room, and for the first time, I realized that happiness didn't need perfection. It just needed peace. But deep down, I knew the story with Jason wasn't over. There was still one more chapter waiting to unfold, and when it did, it would shock him more than anything that had happened so far. Because karma was patient, and so was I.
When life knocks you down, you have 2 choices: stay broken or rebuild stronger. I chose the second. After the scandal broke, Jason's empire began to shake. Investors backed away, partnerships dissolved, and the man who once graced magazine covers was now the center of a public relations disaster. His engagement with Vanessa was long over, but she returned to social media just to post a single captioned photo of herself sipping champagne. Dodged a bullet. The internet had no mercy. And for the first time, I didn't either. I wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted justice. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, devastating kind that comes when the truth finally stands taller than every lie. While Jason's world crumbled, mine began to bloom. After the promotion at the firm, I led my first solo project, a luxury eco-resort design in Greece. It was the kind of assignment architects dream of, and my work quickly caught the attention of international clients. My name, Emily Cooper, started appearing in magazines, not as Jason Hart's ex, but as an award-winning architect and single mother. It felt good. It felt earned. One evening, while I was sketching designs in my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jason. "I know I don't deserve your time, but please, I would like to see Ethan. Just once." I stared at the message for a long time. The old me might have said yes out of pity, but I had learned that pity could be poisonous. Still, I thought of Ethan. He deserved to know the truth someday, not from headlines, but from me. So, after thinking it over, I replied, "You can see him, but on my terms." We met in a quiet park on a Sunday afternoon. It was autumn, golden leaves scattered across the grass, the air crisp with the scent of cinnamon from a nearby cafe. Jason arrived early. He looked different, thinner, weary, but not defeated. When he saw Ethan running toward the ducks, his expression softened completely. "Is that him?" he whispered. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Jason crouched down as Ethan looked up at him with those familiar brown eyes. "Hi, buddy," Jason said softly. "I'm Jason." Ethan smiled shyly. "Hi, Jason." I felt something twist inside me. Sadness, maybe? Because as much as I hated what Jason had done, I couldn't erase the fact that he was Ethan's father. For a few moments, they fed the ducks together. Jason asked about his favorite toys, his school, his favorite color. It was awkward at first, but soon Ethan was laughing. Jason's laughter followed, a sound that used to make my heart race. But this time, it didn't. When Ethan ran off to chase a pigeon, Jason turned to me. "Emily," he began, voice trembling, "I know I've said it before, but I am truly sorry. I can't undo what I did, but I want to be better for him." I studied him for a moment. The sincerity in his eyes looked real, but I had learned that regret doesn't always mean change. "You want to be in his life?" I asked quietly. "Yes, please. I don't care if it takes time. I'll do whatever you need me to do." I nodded slowly. "Then start by earning it. Be consistent. No press, no drama, no showing off for the cameras. You show up for him, not for your reputation." He nodded, eyes wet. "I will." I didn't say it, but part of me wondered if he really would. Over the next several months, Jason tried. He sent small gifts, attended a few play dates, and even donated anonymously to Ethan's preschool. Slowly, cautiously, I began to let him visit once a month. But while Jason was trying to rebuild a relationship with Ethan, his business continued to crumble. Rumors spread that his board was pushing him out. A financial scandal involving one of his partners surfaced, and though Jason wasn't directly responsible, his name was attached to it. Every headline chipped away at the empire he had built on arrogance. And I didn't lift a finger. One afternoon, Claire called me, laughing. "Did you see the news?" "What now?" I asked, stirring soup in my kitchen. Jason Hart officially resigned as CEO. The board forced him out. Apparently, they said he had become a liability. I stirred quietly, my lips curling into a calm smile. "I see." Claire sighed. "I can't believe how much he has changed. Are you okay?" "I'm more than okay," I said softly. "He's finally facing the truth. That everything you destroy in selfishness eventually comes back to destroy you." Months later, I was invited to present my eco-resort project at a global architecture conference in Dubai. It was a huge honor, and to my surprise, Jason was also scheduled to speak there, representing one of his new startups. I hesitated at first, but then I realized this was fate giving me the stage, literally. When the day came, I stepped onto the stage in a sleek black suit, confident, composed, and proud. As I spoke about sustainability and innovation, I caught Jason's gaze from the audience. He looked at me not with regret this time, but with awe. After my presentation, people surrounded me for interviews and photos. I was no longer the woman he denied. I was the woman who rose above him. Later, Jason approached me privately. "Emily, you were amazing. Truly." "Thank you," I said coolly. He hesitated. "I wish I had supported you back then. I didn't see how strong you were." I looked him in the eye and said the words I had waited years to say. "You didn't see me, Jason, because you were too busy looking at yourself." And I walked away, leaving him standing there, silent, humbled, and utterly defeated by the woman he once dismissed. When I got home from the conference, Ethan ran to me laughing. "Mommy, I drew something." He showed me a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands. Mommy, Ethan, and Jason. I smiled sadly. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." And in that moment, I realized that Ethan didn't need revenge. He just needed love. Justice had already found its way on its own. But fate still had one final twist in store, one that would shock Jason in a way he never saw coming. They say time heals all wounds, but that's only half true. Time doesn't erase what happened. It teaches you how to carry it without letting it destroy you. 3 years had passed since the day Jason denied my pregnancy. 3 long, complicated years filled with growth, forgiveness, and quiet victories. Ethan was now 4, bright, curious, and endlessly talkative. He loved building things, always asking how bridges stood or why buildings didn't fall. Maybe he would grow up to be an architect like his mother. Jason, on the other hand, was rebuilding in his own way, or trying to. After losing his company, he started a smaller one focused on developing educational software. It wasn't a failure, but it wasn't glory either. He had gone from headlines to footnotes, from powerful to humbled. We had maintained a civil co-parenting routine. He visited Ethan twice a month, sent gifts, and even attended school events quietly in the back. He wasn't the same man who had walked away years ago. But forgiveness didn't come easily to me. Until life threw him a final curve he didn't see coming. One spring evening, I was invited to a charity gala in Paris, an event supporting women in tech and architecture. My firm was a major sponsor, and I had been selected to give the keynote speech. The theme? Resilience and redemption. Ironically, Jason was also invited. His new startup had just partnered with one of the sponsors. I didn't know he would be there until I walked into the ballroom and saw him across the room, wearing a crisp navy suit. Our eyes met. He smiled nervously, almost shyly. I nodded politely and took my seat. When my turn came to speak, I stood at the podium, lights glittering around me, and looked out at the crowd. I could feel Jason's gaze locked on me. "My name is Emily Cooper," I began. "And I stand here not as someone who never fell, but as someone who got up stronger each time." I spoke about perseverance, motherhood, and how sometimes being abandoned can be the very reason you learn to stand tall. The applause that followed was thunderous. But as I walked off stage, a representative from HeartLearn Technologies, Jason's company, approached me. "Miss Cooper," he said, smiling, "we've been admiring your architectural vision for community projects. Our CEO has been wanting to discuss a collaboration." Before I could respond, Jason appeared beside him. "Emily," he said softly, "I was hoping you would say yes. We're planning to build learning centers across Europe, and your designs would bring them to life." It was a perfect professional opportunity. And a perfect moment for poetic justice. I smiled. "I'll think about it." 2 weeks later, Jason requested a meeting in London to discuss the partnership. I agreed, curious more than anything. We met at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Thames. He looked nervous, rehearsed even. "Emily," he began carefully, "before we discuss business, I want to say something personal. I know I've said sorry before, but this time it's not about the past, it's about now. You've raised Ethan beautifully. You're everything I wasn't brave enough to be." I stayed silent, waiting. He took a deep breath. I lost everything, and I deserved to. But I learned. I've spent every day trying to become a man Ethan could look up to, and maybe one day, a man you could forgive. There it was. Not just an apology, an appeal. But forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same. I looked him in the eyes. Jason, I don't hate you anymore, truly. But you and I live in different worlds now. I built mine from the ground up. You burned yours down. And maybe that's the difference between us. He nodded slowly, pain flickering in his eyes. So, no chance we could ever... No. I said it gently but firmly. You had your chance, and you threw it away when you denied your son. Jason lowered his gaze, nodded, and whispered, I understand. He looked smaller somehow, lighter, but defeated. And as he turned to leave, I added quietly, we can work together for Ethan's future, but that's all. He gave me a sad smile. That's more than I deserve. A few months later, the first Hart Cooper Learning Center opened in Geneva. Jason had insisted my name be added beside his on the project plaque. At the grand opening, journalists swarmed, snapping pictures of the shining new building, a space that would provide free STEM education for children across Europe. One reporter asked Jason on camera, Mr. Hart, how does it feel to partner with the woman who once publicly exposed you? He paused, smiled humbly, and said, she didn't expose me. She revealed the truth, and the truth set me free. Emily taught me the value of integrity, and everything I am now, I owe in part to her. The audience applauded, and for the first time, I saw something real in his eyes. Peace, not pride. But the shock came a week later, when I received a thick envelope in the mail. It was from Jason's lawyer. Inside was a letter and a legal document. Dear Emily, I'm leaving Hart Cooper Foundation in your name and Ethan's. I've decided to step down from leadership and move abroad to focus on volunteer work. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want Ethan to grow up proud of both his parents. Thank you for teaching me what true strength looks like. Jason. Tears filled my eyes. He hadn't vanished out of cowardice this time. He had chosen humility. Years later, Ethan and I visited one of the learning centers in Rome. His name was engraved on the cornerstone plaque beside mine and Jason's. Mommy, he said, tracing the letters with his little finger, was Daddy a bad man? I smiled softly. He made bad choices, sweetheart, but he tried to be better. Ethan thought for a moment, then asked, do you still love him? I looked out at the sun setting over the city, the golden light bathing the children playing in the courtyard. I love what he helped create, I said finally, because it helped us all grow. Ethan nodded, satisfied, and ran off to play. I stood there for a while, feeling the breeze against my face, the breeze of freedom, of closure, of peace. Jason had denied my pregnancy. He had broken me in every possible way. But in the end, life had a way of writing its own justice. He lost the world he built on lies, while I built a new one on truth. And that, more than any revenge, was the shock he never saw coming.